In the late 1980s, one name ruled the world of video games: Mario. He was the mustached plumber from Brooklyn who jumped on turtles, stomped Goombas, and saved Princess Peach over and over and over again. Kids everywhere were playing Super Mario Bros. On the Nintendo Entertainment System, or NES for short. Nintendo wasn't just popular, it was a giant in the gaming world. And at the time, it felt like no one could ever even challenge them, let alone defeat them. But everything changed in 1991. That's when a brand new character sped into the spotlight. He wasn't a plumber, he definitely didn't ride dinosaurs or wear overalls. He was a blue hedgehog with red sneakers, wild spiky hair, and an attitude that just screamed cool. And the biggest difference was, he didn't walk, he blasted across the screen at lightning speed. And just like that, the video game world was shaken up. His name was Sonic the Hedgehog. Now Sonic was more than just a new video game character. He was a symbol of rebellion, a message from Sega, and probably the most powerful and important thing, a direct challenge to Mario. Sega was tired of being second place. They wanted to prove that they could make games that were just as fun and just maybe even better than Nintendo's. To do that, they needed a mascot who could keep up with Mario but also stand out on his own. And Sonic was definitely that hero. Fast, flashy, and full of attitude, he showed kids that video games didn't have to just be slow and careful like Mario's adventures. They could be fast, loud, colorful, and exciting. And the console we came on, the Sega Genesis. With Sonic leading the charge, Sega turned the underdog console into a major player in the console wars. Like I said, it wasn't just a new game, it was the start of a whole new battle in the video games industry. One that would change gaming forever. A character that helped Sega go from being the other company to a serious threat to Nintendo's throne. This is the story of Sonic the Hedgehog, a battle of speed versus strategy, cool versus classic, Sonic versus Mario. In the late 1980s, the video game world had one name on top: Mario. Nintendo's plucky plumber was everywhere. TV commercials, cereal boxes, toys, and even cartoons. Kids knew him well. Parents knew him well. And Sega at the time, well, they were just trying to keep up. At that time, Sega had their own console, the Sega Genesis. But it didn't have a game that could really compete with Mario at the time. I mean, sure, they had hits like Golden Axe and Altered Beast, but none of their characters were strong enough to become the face of the company. Sega desperately needed more than just a new game. They needed a new hero. So in 1990, Sega of Japan held an internal competition among its artists and programmers to create a brand new mascot. They asked, who's going to be the answer to Mario? And some of the ideas were just wild and over the top. They had a bulldog with a big attitude, a man with fangs and fur, even a rabbit who uses ears to grab stuff, and finally, even early versions of Dr. Robotnik as the hero. But one character stood out, a blue, spiky little creature with red sneakers, big eyes, and a confident smirk. That character was Sonic. Now, the character was created by artist Naoto Oshima. He imagined Sonic as fast and edgy, inspired by pop culture. His blue color matched the Sega logo. His shoes were actually based on Michael Jackson's boots from the Bad video. He definitely wanted to give him a 90s swag and the attitude that would appeal to an older audience. Once the character was chosen, Sega's dream team came together. You had Yuji Naka, a genius programmer who loved pushing hardware to its limits. He wanted to make the fastest platformer ever created. Then we had Hirokazu Yasuhara, a smart level designer who could craft worlds that worked perfectly with Sonic's speed. And of course, Masato Nakamura, a pop musician from the band's Dreams Come True. Now, a side note here, if you don't know who Dreams Come True are, they're basically a J-pop band, and some of their best work can be found on the PlayStation 1. It's called Dancing Stages featuring Dreams Come True. If you like DDR or DDR type games, or if you just like listening to music, definitely check that one out. Dreams Come True rocks. Anyway, back to Mr. Nakamura. He was hired to write the game's music, even while working on a real album at the time. But it has to be said that Sonic didn't start off perfect. In the early stages of development, Sonic was actually a rabbit who could pick up objects with his ears. But this was too complicated, and the team wanted simplicity and speed. That's when they realized, what if instead of picking up things, the character could just roll around in a ball and smash through enemies? That single idea alone changed everything. They looked at animals that could roll, and the hedgehog won. Why? Because its spikes could be used as a weapon, and it was unique and gave him that over-the-top edge. And let's be real, You just didn't see hedgehogs in video games. And just like that, Sonic the Hedgehog was born. A genuine, bona fide mascot with a mission. But he couldn't just be a game character, he had to be Sega's answer to Nintendo. Now Sega knew they couldn't just be like Nintendo, they had to be cooler, more extreme, more for teens than little kids. And that's why Sonic was built with attitude. And if you left him standing too long, which would later be incorporated in many other games, he would tap his foot and just give you that glare like, come on man, we gonna move or what? He came off as impatient, edgy, and always in a hurry. Yuji Naka created a special programming trick called the rotation engine, and this allowed Sonic to zoom around loops and slopes without the screen breaking or the game slowing down. And that, my friends, was a huge deal in 1991. Absolutely no other platform looked or felt this fast. Even the levels were designed around this. That's how to make sure that there were multiple paths through each stage. That meant speedrunners could blaze through levels while explorers could actually stop and find hidden areas. Sega also focused hard on making Sonic look different from any other platform game at the time as well. The art style kind of gave off more of a rock and roll vibe than Saturday morning cartoons. The colors were loud and popped, and the backgrounds moved fluently. Sonic's backgrounds were definitely alive. By 1991, Sega had a star on their hands, and over time they bundled Sonic the Hedgehog with the Sega Genesis console in North America, replacing the Alter Beast pack-in. And guess what? Sales absolutely exploded. Sonic helped Sega go from a distant second to #1 in America. Even though it was for a while, still, to pass Nintendo in the American market, that was freaking huge and pretty much unthought of at the time. What Sonic represented was a symbol of change, a mascot that actually told Nintendo in so many words, you're not the only game in town anymore. And the Genesis already had a great library, but with the help of Sonic the Hedgehog, Sega officially arrived. So not only was Sonic a great mascot, that's one thing, but you also gotta have great gameplay, and Sonic delivered in spades. When Sonic the Hedgehog first hit the Sega Genesis in 1991, it just didn't show up, it blasted onto the scene. At a time where most platformers ask players to kinda, slow it down, take their time, move carefully, Sonic was like a lightning bolt, racing through levels with style, speed, and still retaining that attitude. Sega had one goal, to do what Nintendo didn't. Or Nintendo don't, you know that slogan, you know that commercial. And with Sonic, they delivered something brand new. The whole idea of speed meets skill. Sonic the Hedgehog is a 2D scrolling platformer just like Super Mario Bros. On the surface. But the moment you press right on the D-pad, you realize this isn't your average platform game. Sonic is built around speed. The faster you move, the more exciting the games become. But that speed comes with a challenge. You've got to think fast, jump quicker, and react to everything the level throws at you. That means memorizing paths, dodging enemies, and sometimes having to perfectly time your jumps. Going too fast without paying attention, you might hit spikes, lose your rings, or fall into a pit. Now Sonic's controls are pretty simple. They're easy to learn, but can be hard to master. You move left, right, and you got a jump button. His main attack is also what makes him unique. He curls into a ball and rolls. The rolling move lets Sonic smash into enemies, break walls, zoom through loops, all while keeping that momentum Sega advertised so heavily. But here's where the game really gets smart. Sonic isn't just about holding right or going fast. Every level is filled with choices. You have upper routes, lower routes, hidden paths, and actually bonus secrets throughout the levels. Skilled players learn which paths give them the most rings or avoid tricky traps. So it's just not a test of speed, it's a test of memory, reflexes, and even offers you that exploration if you want to take the game down and play it a little slower. Now let's talk about the life system in Sonic. Instead of health points like RPGs or power-ups like Mario, Sonic's survival depends on rings, gold and collectibles that are scattered everywhere throughout the levels. The good thing is, if Sonic has at least one ring, he can take a hit and survive. He'll drop all of his rings, but won't lose a life. If he has no rings or gets hit, that's it, you lose a life. Now if you collect 100 of these rings, Sonic earns an extra man. And this made the game intense and exciting. Rings became a safety net and a goal. Players would frantically try to collect dropped rings after getting hit. Now if you got 99 rings, Sonic unfortunately doesn't drop 99. He'll drop a whole bunch of them, so you're gonna lose some. But for the most part, if you got 2 or 3, you can actually see where they put the detail in where they drop 2 or 3 rings. You can actually get them back. And it gives you an option, so sometimes if you're diving into deep danger, all you gotta do is grab just one to stay alive. And then there's more to it than that with 100 rings. If you finish a level called the Zone with 50 or more rings, a giant ring appears at the end. If you jump into it, you'll be transported to a special bonus stage. Now the bonus stages in Sonic the Hedgehog are some of the most memorable parts of the game. Inside these colorful spinning worlds, Sonic bounces around like a pinball, and there are rotating walls, flashing lights, hidden bumpers, and twisting paths all throughout the stage. Your goal? To reach the center of the stage and collect the Chaos Emerald. Now there's 6 Chaos Emeralds to collect in total. These magical gems are hidden inside the bonus stages and are required for you getting the true good ending of the game. Without them, players see a more neutral ending, but if you collect all 6, you get a special final scene that proves you mastered the game. Now for me personally, I love those extra bonus stages. It was something innovative and it kind of showed what the Sega Genesis could do and what it was capable of. Now I'll admit, I did feel like sometimes those stages were a little wonky. Because the control kind of weird. The more you played it, the better you got at them, but for the most part, they could be a little awkward. But it was just cool trying to rub Sonic up against the breakable walls until you got to that Chaos Emerald. So yeah, definitely a nice touch. And all you got to do is finish the level with 50 rings. You could enter that bonus stage. So you had plenty of chances to get the Chaos Emeralds. You had to get 6 before the game ended. So with the gameplay mechanics in place, let's talk about the zones. When a player first hits start button on Sonic the Hedgehog for the Sega Genesis, they're just not jumping to a simple side-scrolling game, they're entering a whole new world, a series of imaginative lands called zones, each filled with unique designs, incredible music, challenges, and a ton of surprises. These 6 main zones, followed by the final showdown, aren't just levels, they're a journey through a living, breathing world where speed and strategy go hand in hand. So I'm going to take you through each one, and we're going to look at what made each one so special and unforgettable. First up, we got the Green Hill Zone, and this is where the legend begins. This is the level that made Sonic a bona fide household name, with its bright blue skies, waving palm trees, checkered background patterns, and the giant loop-de-loops all throughout the level. The Green Hill Zone is the perfect introduction to Sonic's fast-paced style. It teaches the players how to run, jump, roll, and collect rings, all while enjoying a catchy tune that still gets stuck in fans' head to this day. And this, like Sonic, is not just the first level. Again, it's a statement and a challenge to Nintendo. Green Hill Zone shows off the Genesis color palette, with every background detail adding to its tropical charm. The first time you dash through this loop and smash through the wall, you definitely know you're not playing Mario anymore. Now I remember the first time I played Sonic the Hedgehog, and just watching on a CRT back in the day with the smooth frame rate CRT offers, just to see him go through the loop-de-loop and get those coins and just bounce in the air, like high up in the air, and just the fast movement of the Genesis. I didn't think the Genesis was even capable of doing that. I ain't gonna lie, I didn't know it could even do that. And it was just such a sight to behold, and just as fast as it moved, smooth as it moved, breaking the screen or slow down. It was just an amazing thing, especially in 1991. That was huge. Next up, we have the Marble Zone, and that was pretty much danger beneath the surface. Now, rather speeding through the Green Hill Zone, players get a big surprise. Marble Zone is actually slower, heavier, and all about the timing. So instead of just speeding through the level, you actually gotta take your time and see what you're doing. And the setting is more like what looks like ancient ruins or a fiery underground temple. The zone is packed with lava pits, sliding stone blocks, and crumbling platforms. So you just can't rush here. One wrong move and Sonic falls into the fire. And the music is like stellar. Again, the music is perfect for each zone. With the mysterious melody that matches the spooky setting, Marble Zone teaches patience and timing as opposed to Green Hill Zone going buck wild in speed. And this proved to me that Sonic wasn't just about the speed, it was about the control and then implement some forms of strategy. Next up, we got Spring Yard Zone, the urban playground. And this is where things get nuts. Now the Spring Yard Zone throws players into a cityscape that feels like a giant pinball machine. It's full of bumpers, trampolines, and springboards that bounce Sonic high into the air. And the background looks like a city at night with sparkling lights and another banger of a funky jazz style soundtrack. It was only 6 zones, but each zone had like just banger after banger. Yes, I am glazing the Sonic OST hard. They nailed it with this soundtrack. And with the springs and the pinball mechanics, players are constantly being launched in different directions, making it one of the most unpredictable zones in the game. And again, in my opinion, hats off to Sega for making everything keep that fast, fluid motion. With so much vertical movement, it rewards exploration and quick reflexes. This stage is all about fast, fun, and totally unique experiences. Next up, we got the Labyrinth Zone. A little bit of strategy with Marble Zone, and random wildness with Spring Yard, we got the Labyrinth Zone. And this flips the rules on its head again. This time Sonic is underwater. Now every platformer game does have an underwater stage. And to couple that off, for some reason, Sonic just can't swim. Instead, he sinks like a rock, forcing players to slowly navigate the water currents. Now, one of the most genuine, unique features that really, made you feel like you were underwater was the pressure that built up every time Sonic runs out of oxygen. And then you have a warning jingle that plays to remind you you're almost out of time. The water makes everything feel heavy and slow, which is the opposite of what Sonic usually is. And I love how once you get the bubble, it cuts back to the track. I mean, that's just really cool. It makes you feel like, oh, I just got some oxygen. It was subtle, but it was real clever how Sega did that. So this stage is tense, can be frustrating at times, and unforgivable if you run out of oxygen. Now, some players love it, others dread it. Either way, it stands out as one of the most iconic underwater levels in gaming. And again, I'm blazing the music. This is probably one of my favorite tunes in the whole game. Next up, we got Starlight Zone. And after the stress of Deliverance Zone, Starlight feels like a breath of fresh air. Set high above the clouds, this level is peaceful and wide open, and has a very chill track. You'll see fans blowing Sonic across gaps, seesaws launching him into the air, and smooth ramps that let him build up speed again. The background sparkles with stars, and the calming music helps players relax and kind of wind down, kind of like the calm before the storm. It's one of the prettiest zones in the game in my opinion, and offers a perfect mix of platforming and momentum. It's like a reward for making it this far, kind of tying everything you've learned throughout the previous zones together to try to navigate this one. And lastly, we got the Scrap Brain Zone. And now it's time to enter enemy territory. Scrap Brain Zone is Dr. Robotnik's personal fortress, and it can be brutal at times. The level is full of traps, spinning saw blades, conveyor belts, disciplining platforms, electric fields, and instant death fire pits. So you gotta be really careful on this stage, because at this point, the Scrap Brain Zone implements everything you've learned, all the strategy you've learned from all the zones, and puts it to a true test to try to navigate this one. Every step feels dangerous, and the music is fast and intense. It's a true test of everything you've learned so far. And finally, we're at the final zone, the grand finale. The final zone doesn't have platforms or even enemies. It's just Sonic and Dr. Robotnik in a one-on-one battle. But here's the twist, there's no rings this time. That means one mistake and it's game over. The boss fight is pretty intense and all about dodging crushing pistons and predicting where Dr. Robotnik will appear. And the tension can be real in this game. I mean, the boss isn't impossible, but he can be challenging. So overall, each zone in Sonic the Hedgehog wasn't just a level, it was a part of Sonic's world. From the grassy hills and burning ruins, to the underground caves and robot factories, every zone had a story to tell, and it did it well. They all look different, sound different, and actually play different when you think about it, keeping the experience fresh from start to finish. It's the variety of the levels that help make Sonic the Hedgehog a classic. And what was Sonic's mission throughout the game? Well, it was simple, but heroic. Save his animal friends from being turned into robots. As he speeds through the levels, he breaks open machines and frees little birds, bunnies, and squirrels trapped inside. So while we're talking about Sonic, let's take a quick minute to talk about Dr. Robotnik. As we all know, every hero needs a villain, and Sonic has one of the most creative and iconic bad guys in gaming, Dr. Ivo Robotnik, also known as Eggman. With his round body, wild red mustache, and crazy laugh, Robotnik went down in history as both funny and fearsome at times. Now, Robotnik isn't just trying to take over the world, he's turning innocent animals into robot slaves called badniks. I guess a play off the word beatniks, I don't know. And these machines are found all over the game. Each one has a tiny animal trapped inside. And when Sonic destroys a badnik, the animal inside is set free. And I thought this was a cool thing how the animal jumps off the screen. I thought it was pretty cool at the time. So at the end of almost every zone, Robotnik shows up in his flying machine, called the Egg Mobile, or Egg Mobile, depending on how you want to say it. Now what makes the Egg Mobile special is that it changes each boss fight. One time it might swing like a giant wrecking ball, the next time it might shoot fire or try to crush Sonic with spikes. Each fight is different, and they get a little more challenging as you go. So a little bit about Robotnik's personality, he isn't just smart, he's evil in a more cartoonish way, over the top. He laughs when Sonic gets hit, escapes when he's defeated, and always has a backup plan. So now we have a better understanding of Sonic the Hedgehog, and we know about the game, the levels, the great music, the great villains, Robotnik. Let's take a small glimpse into the console wars and the effect that Sonic had catapulting Genesis potentially in the lead in 1992. Now before Sonic came along, Sega was trailing behind in the console race. Nintendo's NES had dominated the late 80s, and its new console, the Super Nintendo, or SNES as it's known, was expected to continue to trounce all over Sega and continue that trend. But Sonic changed everything. With his speed, style, and attitude, gave Genesis a new identity, something edgier and cooler than what Nintendo was offering at the time. And by 1992, the unthinkable happened. The Sega Genesis actually started outselling the Super Nintendo in North America. For the first time, Sega wasn't just playing catch-up, they were actually leading the way. And the console war, a term used to describe the fierce battle between Sega and Nintendo at the time, was now in full swing. And Sonic was Sega's secret weapon. Sonic became more than just a video game character, he became a pop culture icon. His bright blue color, confident smile, red sneakers stood out everywhere, and kids loved it. He was fast, fun, and full of attitude, which made him the perfect hero for the early 90s. He starred in multiple animated TV shows like The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, which aired on different networks and introduced even more kids to the character. He also had a long-running comic book series published by Archie Comics, which lasted over 20 years and became one of the longest-running video game comics in history. Also, to couple that, he had tons of merchandise, including toys, t-shirts, lunchboxes, backpacks, and even had a breakfast cereal. If you were a kid back in the 90s, there was a good chance you owned something with Sonic's face on it. And as technology evolved, so did Sonic. He leapt into the 3D world of gaming in the late 90s with titles like Sonic Adventure on the Sega Dreamcast. He also appeared in spin-off games such as Sonic Spinball, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, and Sonic Riders. And over 25 years later, Sonic would even jump to the big screen, starring in Hollywood movies that introduced him to a whole brand new generation of gamers. So Sonic didn't just help win a battle in the console wars, he helped reshape the gaming industry. He proved that the right character could carry a company, define a generation, and create a lasting legacy. I want to talk real quick about what Sonic offered to gamers at the time and what Mario offered at the time, and why there was a big contrast difference. In the early 1990s, the video game world was rocked by a rivalry that would change everything. This wasn't just about two characters or even two companies. It was about two ways of thinking, playing, and having fun. On one side stood Mario, the cheerful mustache plumber who helped make video games cool in the 1980s. And on the other side stood a brave new challenger, Sonic the Hedgehog, a blue blur with red sneakers, spiky hair, and an attitude to match. When Sonic the Hedgehog launched on the Sega Genesis in 1991, it wasn't just another platformer. It was a challenge, a bold shot fired directly at Nintendo, the king of video games at the time. Sega didn't want to copy Mario, they wanted to destroy him. So this is a quick rundown of the greatest video game rivalry on the 16-bit era. Speed versus strategy, and how the games felt. Well, the most obvious difference between Sonic and Mario was speed. In Super Mario Bros., the action was careful and thoughtful. You had to jump from block to block, avoid tricky enemies, and explore hidden areas. But it gave you time to think. Mario is about control, timing, and discovery. Now Sonic, on the other hand, flipped that idea upside down on its head. Sonic was all about momentum. When you pressed forward, he took off running. Loops, springs, ramps, it felt like a roller coaster. You weren't meant to stop and look around. You were meant to move and have fun. In Sonic's world, keeping your speed was the reward. Mess up and you slow down. But if you're good, you can fly through the level almost like an airplane. So gameplay, Mario wants you to explore and take your time. Sonic wants you to go fast and have fun. Next, let's take a look at the worlds. Super Mario Bros. Had bright, cartoony worlds. You'd see grassy fields, spooky castles, sandy deserts, and cloudy skies. Everything looked simple, but it all worked together perfectly. Mario kicked butt in that department. And Sonic, on the other hand, went wild with his art style. The famous Green Hill Zone had bright green checkered hills. Later levels showed off glowing cities, ancient ruins, mysterious underwater places. So Sonic's world looked cool too, almost like a comic book or a music video from the 90s. And while Mario's levels mostly went in one direction, Sonic's levels had multiple paths. You could take the high road for speed, or the low road for safety, or blast through the middle if you were fast and skilled. This meant every time you played a certain level, it could feel different. And I feel like both games in their own right specialized and maximized what they did well. So this isn't to say one was better than the other. I mean, I'm a huge Mario fan, and I'm a huge Sonic fan. But they do contrast differently when looked at side by side. Next up, we got character personality, who they were. Mario was like a friendly next door neighbor. You know, he didn't say too much, but everyone liked him. He was goofy at times, fun, easy to relate to. He was the kind of guy that your parents didn't mind you playing the game. He was safe. Nintendo was a very safe bet for kids. Sonic was the opposite. He had attitude. Sonic was a little more edgy, a little more reckless, and a little more hip at the time than Mario was. And what made him cool for me? Sonic loved chili dogs. Enough said. The character posed a statement. Sonic was designed and made to feel like the cool kid who skateboarded, listened to rock music, and never played by the rules. And honestly, a lot of kids to the 90s, not the crap on Mario, but I'm just saying, we had seen Mario evolve through the years, and in some circles, Mario kind of felt like yesterday's news. And Sonic kind of felt like what was going on right now in gaming. And Sega leveraged that to their advantage. And they did it with total, unfiltered disses on Nintendo. You didn't have to be politically correct back then. Sega kind of felt like they were going to say what was on their mind, and they said it. Let's talk about the music and sound. Now, Mario's music is epic. It was created by the legendary Koji Kondo and is some of the most famous video game music ever. The original overworld theme is upbeat and catchy, something you could just hum to forever. Sonic's soundtrack was totally different. Masato Nakamura from the J-pop band Dreams Come True, one of my favorite, made Sonic's music sound more like a pop or rock album. The beats were funky, the bass lines grooved, and it felt like modern and just like Sonic himself. You hear that music, you automatically associate that with Sonic. And the same thing can be said about Super Mario. You hear his music, you know it's Mario. So they both had that same kind of thing going for them. Lastly, I think one of the most important parts at the time was the marketing mayhem, the console war. Sega just didn't make Sonic cool in the game, they made him cool everywhere. The company launched one of the boldest ad campaigns in gaming history. The slogan, Genesis does what Nintendo don't. These ads weren't shy. They mocked Nintendo, saying Mario was slow and old school while Sonic was fast, flashy, and full of energy. Sega aimed straight at the kids who thought Mario was for little kids and wanted something more edgy and exciting. And they kind of did the same thing. Sonic and Mario both had cartoons, comic books, action figures, and were larger than life at the time. And lastly, like we said, Mario games taught you how to slow down, look around, and think before you jump. And you had to learn the rules of the world, where to find hidden blocks or how to defeat tricky enemies. And Sonic was about the flow. You needed to feel the rhythm of the level. If you kept moving and reacted quickly, you'd zoom to the finish line. If you slowed down or got hit, you'd lose your rhythm and have to fight to get it back. So overall, I feel like both Sonic and Mario definitely have a huge impact in today's gaming culture. And eventually over time, they would cross over, and I would see something with Sega, with Sonic actually being on a Nintendo system. Back in the day in the 90s, when me and my buddies argued and fought about the console wars and who's gonna be better, who's better, Sega and Super Nintendo, never in my wildest dreams would I think that I would live to see Sonic on an actual Nintendo machine and actually Sonic and Mario crossover. Because back in the day, in the 90s with video games, crossover wasn't a thing. Okay, crossover was from your own IPs. You know, like maybe first crossover might be like Mario Kart or something like that, where they actually Mario characters or Nintendo characters crossover. Same thing with Sega. But Sega and Mario on the same game was unheard of. Okay, but you know, over time it happened. So eventually they did evolve into something that Sonic and Mario we know today, and you know, that kind of relationship. But back in the day, Sega was kind of ruthless with marketing with Nintendo. It wasn't like today. It was kind of edgy. It was kind of rough back in the day. So yeah, that's just a quick little look at the history of Sonic and Mario. If you lived it back then, you know all about it, and if not, I'm sure you've seen other videos that cover that. So I just wanted to talk about that because I feel like the culture in the 90s of gaming was very different than what it is today. So I just want to take you back on that journey. So why does Sonic still matter? Sonic the Hedgehog was more than just pixels and platforming. He was a movement and a revolutionary in Sega's uprise in the 90s. He made speed exciting, attitude cool, and showed the world that Sega could compete with the biggest names in gaming. And here's the cool part. Sonic's original game is still just as fun to play as it was back in 1991. Sonic games are still being made, movies are being made, and you can still play the old school original Sonic 1 to this very day, with its catchy music, bright graphics, and thrilling level design. And they have definitely aged well and stood the test of time. So whether you've played Sonic back in the day as a kid, a teenager, or a grown-up, or just now discovering him for the first time, there's no better time to jump into a Sonic game. And Sonic's legacy is still strong. And I have to think sometimes, without Mario, there may never have been a Sonic. And without Sonic, Nintendo might have never been challenged. I think both Mario and Sonic pushed each other to become better. It was basically the tale of two icons. Sonic and Mario represent two different kinds of fun. And for kids growing up in the 90s, choosing between them wasn't just a choice, it was a part of your identity. Were you Team Sonic or Team Mario? Schoolyards and living rooms and playgrounds, that was a question that started 100 debates. And even today, the rivalry still lives on in the hearts of gamers everywhere. So that's going to do it for Sonic the Hedgehog, guys. I mean, for me, this game, it was a phenomenon at the time. It was something brand new that the industry hadn't seen, and it definitely made Sega. I always loved the Sega Genesis. I thought it was a great system and great games, but that Sonic the Hedgehog took it to a whole nother level, and you know, put Sega on top. Even if it was only for a little bit, it still put Sega on top. And that, to beat Nintendo, especially in the 80s and 90s, I mean, that was not like today where, you know, you're kind of all over the place. Back then, Nintendo was king, and to be uprooted like that with the Sega Genesis, that was definitely a part of gaming history. So that's gonna do it for my take of Sonic the Hedgehog. Let me know in the comments what your favorite Sonic game is. There's so many to choose from. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 rates as one of the best Sonic games of all time, but definitely play the old school one and move on to 2 and 3. I think the Genesis had some great Sonic games. They would go on into the Dreamcast life cycle, and it was just a great franchise overall. And you can even play them together now with Mario and Sonic at the Olympics. So I mean, it's just tons of great Sonic games to play. So that's gonna do it for this one, guys. As always, take care of yourself, protect you in peace. God bless you. I'm catching you next video. Thanks for watching.